Vision space deals with the data structures appearing within phenomenal field, and from this we can understand that vision has little to do with the projection of optics or the geometry of central perspective. There are no pictures in the visual system. The structure of picture space has almost nothing to do with the data structures involved in the generation of vision. It is essential to understand that monocular vision is not commensurate with the photographic record. Far from it. Binocular vision involving disparity does not involve the fusion of pictures emanating from right and left eyes. Also, that when we look at optically generated media, we understand that it is a photograph, or a reproduction on the leaf of a book, or a film on a screen, or a simulated environment. We are willing partners in the suspension of disbelief as we take hold of a photograph as an object in the world, and then forget the fact to allow ourselves to consider and immerse ourselves in the illusionary space. Optical projection is just one form of illusionary space. It is not real in the sense that it mirrors visual reality. Reality occurs to us, and it's a relationship we form with the real. Phenomenal field tells us more than. There is nothing less real than realism. As an artist, it still astonishes me that this is not understood by many across the various disciplines working towards an understanding of vision, because it's fundamental. If this is the case, then we have to consider that pictorial stimuli, including optical record and our responses to it, are actually atypical, leading our visual system to operate in ways non-commensurate with an actual visual encounter of a real setting. A photograph is deficient. A filmed sequence does not stand in for us. Pictorial space is not perceptually structured, and we should expect some odd perceptions to take place while immersed within it that don't actually take place as we view a real setting. We can't generate or appreciate important aspects of perceptual structure by looking into pictorial space. Just because odd effects take place as we look at artificial stimuli confined by picture space does not mean that the effects experienced have anything to do with our perception of the real world. In fact, the special effects encountered are probably occurring because the stimuli is fundamentally compromised in this way. Fusion 3D is just another example, as we engineer with 2D pictures. To a certain extent, of course, the same is true of vision space. It's another form of illusionary space, and we are as aware of this as we are when we are engaging with picture space media. What we should feel is that vision space is more naturalistic, closer to a presentation of experiential reality. Vision space as such is not on the 1-2 3D curve. It's EXPD, directly associated with the experiential dimension. To appreciate this, it's going to be necessary for us to challenge the incorrect but near welded association our culture has between optical record and our projections of vision. Vision space media contains perceptual structure and hence evidence of the relationship we form with the real. It contains aspects of the perceiver's share. The composition of the media should, if executed properly, be configured in a way commensurate with the way the scene would have been generated by us had we been there. This allows us to engage with the media in a more meaningful way. We're seeing through the eyes of a person and engaging in those processes, not merely encountering what a piece of machinery has recorded and doing our best to accommodate the situation by switching off neural processes not being engaged. Critically, vision space contains data structures that present both our implicit understanding of spatial awareness and those associated with the explicit contemplation of form. Each of these has its own type of attention, allowing us to navigate our real environment while responding to what's going on in an efficient and effective manner. These independent systems support one another in this endeavour. If, as in picture space and photographic record, one of these systems is absent, we can imagine that presentations that do include this capability are going to provide us with entirely new opportunities. Vision space should be more immersive and present directors, storytellers, editors and presenters with new opportunities to communicate meaning more efficiently. We are all familiar with our ability to invert the Necker cube as the brain struggles to comprehend the 2D drawing. It has options, and comprehension of its orientation in space flips from one possible solution to the next. This occurs precisely because it is a drawing, conforming to and limited by its geometry in 2D space. It lacks important perceptual structures, like the implicit spatial context so important to our perception of real spatial settings. Immortalized by Escher, working in 2D space in the absence of vision space contextual spatial field cues, it's possible to lead our explicit processing system into paradox. Picture space is deficient, and as we look at real settings on an experiential basis, we do better than this. It would be impossible to reference or draw these stimuli in vision space. The errors the explicit system makes in viewing the specialized 2D representations are prevented from occurring in real life by the supporting spatial context. I have to admit that I have not experienced the impossible real-life sculptures in person and in situ in order to see if the implicit cues from peripheral vision, obviously missing in the photograph, act to counteract the reasoned explicit cues that build through central vision and play out so strongly in picture space. However, I suspect that these structures are conceived from drawings, constructed in materials, to then be posed in photographs, their excursion into the real world being something of a farce. I doubt that experiential reality is actually being brought into play. I doubt anyone has ever bothered to look at them properly, leaving the relationship between the real setting, sculpture, and our real-time experience of it largely unconsidered. These are actually examples of conceptual art, the illustration of ideas that don't reach or engage with the experiential, and as such belong to the virtual world of picture space. We also strongly invert real masks in the right circumstances, perceiving concave impressions as convex. So what's the score here? I would suggest there are essential conditions that encourage the effect to manifest. Obviously, a huge consideration here is that the brain imposes faces as being convex, overriding cues that suggest otherwise. Beyond this, the most important consideration will be to ensure that the contextual cues that we rely on to counteract the effect are minimized. To my mind, Richard Gregory correctly associated situations that trigger a break of the illusion with the stimulation of the dorsal stream overriding the ventral stream. But I remain unconvinced that on its own the top-down versus bottom-up interpretation would cover all the bases here. Vision space would suggest that the dorsal and ventral streams are related to the visual pathways that initiate at the retina, and that we should perhaps consider this phenomenon a data ecology issue resulting from decoherence of the light array, requiring independent processing systems. The visual artist traditionally tries to manifest perceived reality, and in doing so shows us flashes of perceptual structure. I think we can use vision space to reconsider a host of optical illusions, to understand how they violate or play with perceptual structure. Other artists accentuate the gap and play with the inconsistencies to shock us into recognition of it.